Good morning and welcome to the College of Forestry, Ag, and Natural Resources here at University of Arkansas at Monticello. Great pleasure to host you all this morning. I'm Michael Blazier. I'm the Dean of the College of Forestry, Ag, and Natural Resources here. But before beginning our session here, I wanted to take a moment to allow our Chancellor, Ms. Peggy Doss, or Dr. Doss, to call us to order here.
Thank you, Dr. Blazier. Well, good morning, everyone. So good to see all of you here today. We're especially thrilled today to be able to host this event for Senator Boozman, and we're so pleased to have Congressman Westerman with us as well today. These two gentlemen are such strong supporters of everything that we do in our agriculture and forestry area, and particularly just generally across the university as a whole. So I want to thank you so much for your support, and thank you for choosing Monticello and UAM to host this event today, where we also have distinguished members of our Farm Bureau Association that's here today, our board members, and we're so glad to have you with us. We look forward to this opportunity for our producers and those here today to be able to not only listen and hear what's going on with our Farm Bill, but also to have some responses to that. So in just a moment, Dr. Blazier is going to share with you some of the things that's going on here in the College of Forestry, Ag, and Natural Resources. But before he does that, I just want to say that we are up and moving at UAM. We're trying to do a lot of projects, not only to attract new students, but to capitalize on the wonderful programs that we have here. I'm interested, how many of you in this room are a UAM graduate? Look at that. And I know some of these folks I've known, Joe Don Greenwood, for a long, long time. And I can tell you how successful they've been over the years, and people in this room that have gone out and done wonderful things in your careers, and you've represented this university so extraordinarily well, and we're so proud of you. We have unbelievable instructors and faculty here at this campus, and particularly in the College of Forestry, Ag, and Natural Resources, that make sure that our students go out well prepared for the industry and meeting the needs of agriculture and forestry, and the research that's going on is phenomenal. We're also happy to tell you that the building that you're in today, and some of you that were here many years ago may remember this room looking a little different. Recently, I guess in the last year, it's been renovated, and I'd like to do a shout out and another thank you to Representative Jeff Wardlaw for helping us acquire some one-time funds to do the renovation of this facility. And so I'm sure Representative's not here today. I know where he is and the work he's doing today. But if you see him, please thank him on behalf of UAM. So we have a lot of things going on with some capital campaigns for improving our Athletic Performance Center, as well as projects in this area, including something Dr. Blazier will share with you in a moment about some additional ag building renovations that we plan to do. There's many exciting things, but I'm so afraid I'm going to steal some of the comments that you're making. I'm going to stop at this point and let the people who really know what's going on at this institution have an opportunity to speak. So thank you for being here. I welcome all of you, and UAM is your home. Come back anytime. Thank you. Dr. Blazier.
Thank you, Dr. Doss. Well, it's a pleasure not just to have you all at UAM, but here in Southeast Arkansas. I think it's extremely relevant to discussions about anything on a farm bill to be in Southeast Arkansas. If you summarize the revenues from farms and timber and combine those, it's actually Southeast Arkansas that is the major region in the state of Arkansas for producing those type of revenues. Being administrator over this College of Forestry, Ag, Natural Resources, I feel like it's a tremendous responsibility and a pleasure that we're able to provide the workforce that will enact things that occur in the Farm Bill. We're the only forestry school in the state of Arkansas, and that's a $6 billion industry. We also have our agriculture and natural resources, and those account for combined about $23 billion, or 20% of the Arkansas's economy when you take all those commodities combined. So we have a very big responsibility in our college to produce the workforce to serve that major industry. So our alumni are professionals and community leaders statewide, and they're out there acting on the Farm Bill and carrying out its initiatives. We have a lot of great resources within our college. Our faculty, like others at the other ag faculty at Fayetteville and Arkansas State, we have combined appointments with the University of Arkansas System Division of Agriculture. We're unique that we have a more natural resources focus here, and we're doing a lot of research and extension that is relevant, highly relevant to the Farm Bill. We're doing research on the management needs of the forests that are planted in conservation easements. And we see there's large areas throughout East Arkansas that are planted in those programs. They need management interventions to make sure they optimize the wildlife benefits that they were developed to provide. And one of our focal areas is on our waterfowl research, and that's an interesting attribute to focus on, because waterfowl need, across the landscape, they need healthy forests, they need agriculture, and they need water. So all of that extremely affected by what's accomplished with the Farm Bill.
So tell us about your students banding the...
Yes, this is, in fact, we're, just as a side note, we're live streaming this event right now through Zoom, and Dr. Osborne, our waterfowl professor, is out and about right now because this is banding season. The season is over, or the duck season's over, and they're about to fly north, so we're banding them heavily to monitor their movements throughout North America as they migrate back north. We're also attaching GPS receivers on their backs so that we can live monitor their movement patterns. And we know that due to shifts in forest health and forest composition that really need our research and management intervention, that there is the potential for duck populations to move away from the lower Mississippi Valley flyway. Arkansas is one of the top 5 duck flyways in the world, and in duck season, that's contributing about $1 million a day to the state economy. So it's a major quality of life issue and a major economic issue to make sure we sustain that. So we have our partnership, a private partnership with the Five Oaks Ag Research and Education Center, that's really given our unit quite a bit of extra horsepower to pursue the research that's necessary to make sure those forests stay healthy, and monitor the waterfowl populations to see how they respond as we do more interventions on that. So thank you for your question. We're also doing research that's relevant to the Farm Bill, that we're doing exploratory work on bringing new markets in for biomass, forest biomass, like for fuels, for new construction materials. We're doing research and outreach on soil health through cover crops and soil amendments like biochar. We actually even have a biochar production facility here in Monticello that we're working with. We have a new unit within our college, the Arkansas Center for Forest Business, and if I could get a show of hands by our ever-growing economists of that unit. Thank y'all. This was created in the last year's, or the 2022 legislative session now, or 21, and these are experts on a lot of issues that can be informative for Farm Bill development and other legislative development. There's experts on taxes and policies and how they affect ecological and economic sustainability. We're looking into how we can incentivize forest landowners in those easement programs to actively manage their forests. And they do a lot of analyses to help draw new industries into Arkansas. And one of the newest factoids that their unit generated that I found intriguing is that they did an analysis of what University of Arkansas at Monticello has meant to the economy of Southeast Arkansas and all of Arkansas. And when you look at what our students are generating in terms of increased earning power throughout a lifetime, through the operations of this university, that's generated a $270 million economic output for just Southeast Arkansas. It's $1.1 billion economic contribution of University of Arkansas at Monticello when you sum up those same factors there. So We're proud of what we're able to achieve here, and we're proud to have you here. And before we begin, I just wanted to point out one attribute of our building. Let's see, actually, before I get into that, this is, like Dr. Doss mentioned, part of a larger renovation effort. This was completed last year. We're working to renovate our greenhouse and a facility next door to this, and we're also in the middle of a fundraising campaign to have a privately funded new rodeo and livestock agriculture arena here on campus. Again, Southeast Arkansas is so important in agriculture. We want to be a seat of where folks can come and learn more and recreate more agriculturally related. But the feature I wanted to draw you before we begin is this facility is built to bring livestock right into the classroom. Those bay doors will open, and we can tether them to the wall right here. So maybe relevant to today's discussion, if there is an accrual of manure in this facility, we're set up to hose it down right there behind you. So without further ado, I will call us to order. All right. So maybe best to make, from here on, do y'all introduce yourselves from left to right here, or do we just get right into it?
Let's get right into it.
All right, here we go.
Well, thank you. Is it on now? Yes. Okay, good. Thank all of you all so much for being here, especially in a kind of a rush fashion. We would never really know our schedules in Congress until things kind of gel out. But one of the things that I want to get done, I always talk about the fact that the answers to our problems need to come from the ground up. And so that's what this is all about. This is a Senate listening session from the Ag Committee in the Senate. I've got a bunch of staffers here. Where are you? Stand up and tell them what you do. And you need to be nice to these people. They're the ones that do all the work.
Hi everyone, Carly Esser. I work for the Senator handling crop insurance, commodity programs, and disaster programs. Originally from Missouri, so excited to be here and hear what y'all have to say.
Scott Davis, Senator for State Ag Liaison. I'm the staff of our office.
Good morning everyone, I'm Mason Kelly. I work as Senator on his Ag Committee staff in D.C., but I'm from Arkansas, from Townsend, Richmond, so good to be with you this morning.
I'm John Newton, I'm the Chief Economist. James Emerson, I'm at the Senator's El Dorado office.
Very good. And again, a special thanks to the university for allowing us to do this here and all that you do from an ag standpoint, really every other standpoint. You do a tremendous job. This is a wonderful institution, and we do appreciate all of the hard work. I'm so pleased to have one of my running buddies with me, Bruce Westerman. You know, Bruce is interesting. Bruce is, he not only represents you in the 4th District, but he represents the state regarding forestry. And he not only represents the state, he represents the Republican side of things. He is the guy in forestry. But he not only represents the Republican side, but to his credit, he really has become the guy in Congress that is the guy, the go-to guy in forestry. And that's from a member standpoint. It's also from an industry standpoint. He's a guy that truly does understand what's going on and doing a great job. There's a lot of, and we'll talk more about this in a little bit, but there's a lot of potential for forestry right now with our forest burning up. Even some of our leftist folks, realize that we've got to take care of our forests or we're going to lose them. And like I say, we'll get Bruce to talk more about that. There's a lot of opportunity, and then the climate cycle is so very good, the best in agriculture. So lots of opportunities in that way. So we're here to listen. We're going to make this very, very informal. We've got some folks up here that we want to hear from officially in the sense that, with specific topics that we want to know about. But after we get done visiting with them for a little bit, then I'm going to turn it open. Bruce and I are going to turn it open to the audience. And anybody here, if you've got a question or a comment about what's going on, start thinking about it now, because you're going to have that opportunity. Like I said, the key to this is again, solving our problems from the bottom up. You all are out there fighting the battles. As you know, we're working really hard to get a farm bill passed. The current farm bill runs out on September 31st. And so between now and then, we're having these listening sessions. We're having formal hearings in the Senate, both at the full committee, and then we'll also have it at the subcommittee level, gathering information as we go forward. As we write this farm bill, it's very different than, times are very different than when we wrote the last farm bill. We thought times were kind of rocky then. There's no comparison now. So we've got these generational things going on with the high input cost, all of the problems, high interest rates, the list goes on and on, supply chain issues, all of the things that you all have been having to deal with, and have done your best and actually dealt. But we want to see how we can help, how we can make things run smoother. Agriculture is so very important. Agriculture is about our farm community. It's also about the nutrition aspect, but it's all about rural America. In Arkansas, we've got 75 counties, 53 of them lost population. You start losing those turnback dollars, you don't have a whole lot to begin with. It makes it very difficult. Agriculture is the sustaining force. So anything we can do to support not only the farm community, but agriculture in general. And as you know, there's a lot of stuff in the Farm Bill that has to do with just supporting rural America through broadband, through water. The list goes on and on. So those are the things that we're going to be talking about. I'm very optimistic. I think that Congress wants to get a Farm Bill done. They know how important this is. My goal is to have a better run of it than the last farm bill that we did. Senator Roberts, Senator Stabenow passed a farm bill with a record number of votes. I think they had 86, 87 votes in the Senate. That's a big deal. You could say who's for Mother's Day, and the ratio wouldn't be a whole lot more than that. I think there was only 20 dissenting votes in the House. So again, we because of your hard work, we've worked hard to make sure that members of Congress understand how important this is, how important it is to the general public. So, Bruce, tell us a little bit about what you're working on.
Well, thank you, Senator Boozman. It's always good to be back at UAM, back in Monticello and Drew County. And, when you get invited to a Senate Ag listening session, you just say what time I will be there. So it's great to be here representing the House and to be here with my good friend, Senator John Boozman, who is, he does so much good for the state back in D.C. And I think he's the most under-recognized member of Congress in the effectiveness of things, and he gets stuff done. If I run into a roadblock, it's like I got my lifeline. I call Senator Boozman and say, hey, what can we do here? And he works it out, and he does it always with a smile on his face. So thank you, Senator, for doing this listening tour and for letting me be part of it. Dr. Doss, good to see you again. I didn't realize that UAM was actually an institution when Joe Don Greenwood went to college, but everybody claims Joe Don, and good to see you, my friend. It's what better way to celebrate National FFA Week than to talk about the Farm Bill and to do it in a place that is what I kind of think of as a merger of agriculture in Arkansas. You've got forestry, you've got row crops, you've got ranching and poultry, everything in a small radius from Monticello, when you think of agriculture in Arkansas, is right here. So you should be able to get some good input, Senator, and with the Senator serving as the ranking member on the Agriculture Committee, I can tell you that Arkansas is well positioned as we put the Farm Bill together. And also on the House side, we've got Rick Crawford, who's got very high seniority on the House Ag Committee. And G.T. Thompson, who chairs the House Ag Committee, is a personal friend of mine and the senators, and he will do the right thing. And I'm very excited about this opportunity with the Farm Bill. I'm on the Natural Resources Committee, which has a lot of relationship with the Agriculture Committee. And one thing that our committee has jurisdiction over is Western water. And when you talk about agriculture, the Central Valley of California, you may wonder, what does that have to do with Arkansas? But about 80 to 90% of the fruits, nuts, and vegetables, and I'm not talking about people, I'm talking about actual products, come from the Central Valley of California.
Both.
And last summer, they had 600,000 acres of land lay fallow because there wasn't enough water in California. So if you look around Arkansas, one thing we've got, we're very, very blessed with is water. We still need to do a good job of conservation with it and taking care of it. And I've talked to the governor about this, but I think there's huge opportunities for more specialty crops in Arkansas. And when you talk to retailers, they would rather see all that vast amount of produce that's produced in California dispersed more evenly across the country so you can get it to market quicker. And I know, there's tomato farming not too far from here. We do a lot with in the northern part of my district with fruits that you might not realize. If you eat a blackberry that comes from a grocery store, it was very, very likely came from a strain from Clarksville, Arkansas, where they do blackberry research. And I think those are areas where Arkansas can really grow, and I want to be able to try to help as we put the Farm Bill together in looking for places to have more valuable crops. I could talk about forestry a long time, but I can tell you I'm very bullish on forestry, and I'm very bullish on Arkansas forestry. We've done a good job managing our forest here. Biochar was mentioned. Do you realize there was more carbon sequestered with biochar last year than there was with carbon capture and sequestration? And I've actually got a bill called the Biochar Act that we'll run that as a standalone bill out of the Resources Committee, and if we can't get it passed on a standalone, that's something we'll be trying to include in the Farm Bill, as well as feral hog control and a lot of the conservation programs. So a lot to talk about, and I've already talked too long, so I'm going to yield back, Senator. Thank you for letting me be here.
No, thank you so much. And one of the real joys of being on the Agriculture Committee, it's not about Democrats and Republicans. There's not a lot of infighting that way at all. It's about regions of the country. Southern agriculture is different than the I's, Illinois, Iowa, Indiana. We've got different needs. The Great Plains are different. John Hoven, who's the ranking member on the Ag Appropriations, is a dear friend. We'll get him to Arkansas in the not too distant future. But again, his needs being in North Dakota, South Dakota, they're very different than here. California, as Bruce mentioned, is different. They can grow anything. They export a tremendous amount of stuff. We export a tremendous amount of stuff, and we need to constantly be looking for new markets. And there's a lot of things that we can do to foster increase in the Farm Bill as we go forward in that regard. So it's about regions of the country, and the other thing is it's about commodities. Bruce mentioned the specialty crops. Cotton's very different than rice and peanuts and all of the other, we've got all of these different commodities that require different things. So the key is it's not a one-size-fits-all. It's molding all of that together and working hard, and certainly you all are going to be a big part of that. We're blessed in Arkansas that we do produce so much stuff, and you're kind of a microcosm of the country, which is a good thing to do. So let's hear from the folks that we have here today, and I think we're going to start out with Jim Whitaker. Jim, why don't you introduce yourself, tell them what you do. Most of them know you, and then we'll go from there.
Good morning. Thank you, Senator Boozman, for the opportunity to be here today and testify on the behalf of USA Rice and Arkansas Rice Federation. My name is Jim Whitaker. I'm a fifth-generation farmer. I farm with my brother Sam, our 2 wives, and our 4 children just outside of McGee in the McGee-Dermott area. And a little bit of trivia. I met my wife in the chair Joe Minster's sitting in about 33 years ago. And sometimes I'm embarrassed to say I didn't get the degree, but I got the girl. And that's been the best thing I ever got. So first and foremost, Senator, I want to thank you for leading the charge with the provide the assistance to rice farmers. The additional funding provided through the Omnibus Appropriations Bill was critical to many rice farmers, including myself. Rice was not as fortunate as other crops. As commodities went up, had a large run-up in prices, it didn't affect rice the way it did other commodities. We gained price at the offset of the erosion of the PLC program. Rice is more vulnerable to other crops due to rising fuel costs, fertilizer, and the result of the 2022 rice crop would have been a wreck if it had not been for the assistance Congress provided. We recorded the lowest planted acres in the United States last year, lowest in 40 years. This is threatening critical infrastructure in rural communities all over the United States. Senator Boozman, we have no greater champion than you. I want to thank you for what you've done for Arkansas, for what you've done for rice. I also want to commit to providing you any assistance I can with help for the Farm Bill coming up. We think standing by the nation's critical rice industry is a worthy investment. So Americans are realizing food security is national security. And on average, every rice farmer commits $1 million to the local economy while hiring 6 employees. Without sustaining the industry, rural America, especially eastern Arkansas, is going to suffer the most. We're the largest rice growing state. We're going to suffer the most. Title I of the Farm Bill, specifically Price Loss Coverage Program, is really our true safety net and critically important because it levels the playing field by highly subsidized global countries, competitors. U.S. farm families cannot compete on such a distorted world market. Countries such as India and others are subsidizing their farmers to a level that make world prices too low. Payment limitations also need to reflect the growing size and risk of family farms. The days of 40 acres and a mule are outdated. We're way past that. The risk farm families are taking is greater than it's ever been. The rice industry prides itself on conservation. Too many farmers can't afford to commit to conservation practices without Title I. We believe Congress should prioritize working lands like CSP, EQIP over set-aside programs, as the problems associated with too much food is better than food scarcity. Further, conservation programs cannot be a one-size-fits-all. USA Rice has had extraordinary success with the Stewardship Partnership with Ducks Unlimited, the Regional Conservation Partnership Program, and Congress should examine these public, almost private partnerships at the lowering administration barriers and implementation cost. The Market Assistant Programs and the Farm Market Development Program has helped U.S. rice industry. We have proven track record with over 30 overseas markets. USA Rice has been intentional over the past years to improve crop insurance. Crop insurance and PLC are truly our only safety nets that we have. I want to thank you for the leadership in agriculture issues in Congress, the entire Senate Ag Committee. I want to thank you for being our champion, and thank you for improved Farm Bill for our families and our nation's future.
Thank you very much. Wes?
Well, good morning. Jim's obviously a lot more polished than I am. This is my first go-round on something like this. So I would like to thank everybody for this opportunity. Thank you all for this opportunity. My wife and I farm soybeans, cotton, and corn just east of here in Deshay County, over close to the Mississippi River. I've been a full-time farmer since 2016. I had a career with the Cooperative Extension Service for 14 years prior to that. My wife is she's been a full-time farmer since 1996 when she graduated from UAM here. Some of the acres that we farm, we've been farming, my wife's family's been farming for over 80 years. We have benefited from some of the conservation component of the current Farm Bill through the CSP and the EQIP programs. The only thing I'd like to say regarding the conservation component is that I would like to see its continued funding, echoing what Jim said. We'd really like to see increases in those funding so more acres can be enrolled in some of those conservation programs. We've also benefited somewhat from the ARC PLC components of the current Farm Bill, so I think those programs should also be continued. But I also think reference prices used in those may need to be reevaluated because of the increase in input costs, drastic increases in input costs that we've been seeing the last couple of seasons. The crop insurance component of the current Farm Bill is where I think most of the work needs to be focused on, or a lot of work needs to be focused on in the new Farm Bill, so that we have a crop insurance program that works for everybody. I'll give a specific example as to what I mean by that. We buy a multi-peril policy every year for coverage with the expectation that if we have a major event on our farm, we'll be covered for at least some of that loss. We also understand that crop insurance is not meant to make us whole following a major event, but it should at least help soften the blow. We had a major event during the two floods of 2021 in Deshay County. We lost nearly half of our soybean production that year. We didn't put a combine in 900 acres of soybeans. And the yield on the soybeans that we actually did harvest were drastically reduced because of the flood events. We received absolutely nothing from our multi-peril policy on insurance. The only help we received was through a replant policy that was an additional expense, and the only way we could receive that is to actually replant. And we replanted in July, and for those people that know anything about replanting soybeans in July in Arkansas, that's a recipe for terrible yield potential. But in order to get that replant policy help, we had to replant. On top of that, some of the disaster relief payments that were released following the flood events were tied to crop insurance settlements, which we didn't have any crop insurance settlements, so we were not eligible for the disaster relief payments either. We probably could have bought up a insurance policy that would have covered us during that flood event, but it likely would have been more expensive than what we could afford. And I'll give you an example. We ran some monies, and Jeffrey Hall's on this on this panel as well, and we ran some numbers to compare a price comparison for the same policy in Deshay County, Arkansas, and compared that policy to a county in Illinois. I believe it was McLean County, Illinois. For the same policy, the premium per acre is 5.5 times higher in Deshay County than it is in McLean County, Illinois. And I think that is where we need to have some conversation about crop insurance. Again, thank you for the opportunity to speak, and that's my statement.
Jason.
I'm currently serving on the Ag Council of Arkansas Executive Committee. I'm on the Corn and Sorghum Research Promotion Board, which we had a meeting in Jackson Port just last night that I came back from. Vice Chair, the Board of Directors at Delta Peanut, and a producer delegate on National Cotton Council. I'm a sixth-generation farmer in Arkansas and member of many ag organizations. I want to thank you, Senator Boozman, on behalf of our fellow farmers and communities that depend on our healthy ag communities. We know we have a leader and friend in Senator Boozman that we can count on. You have a great staff, and we know your team and entire Arkansas delegation and all our elected officials understand the importance of agriculture to our state and nation. We know there's much work to be done. We rely on the entire state banding together to strengthen our nation's ability to maintain a safe, abundant, and affordable supply of food and fiber. I know you and your staff have a challenging year ahead with all the work and negotiations for establishing a new farm bill. The last couple of years, we have relied heavily on the farm bill and especially the ad hoc assistance, such as the MFP, the WIP Plus, CFAP, PPP, ERP. They have been critical to keep many farms afloat. Farming dynamics have changed through the trade war, pandemic, natural disasters, supply chain disruptions, which only seems to be getting worse, geopolitical battles, and other unforeseen challenges. The Farm Bill's safety net is falling short of providing sufficient support for farmers, hence the need of all the ad hoc assistance that we needed to get just to keep farming. It's my hope that we strengthen the new Farm Bill to reflect these recent experiences and lessons learned to build in these amounts into the new Farm Bill instead of relying so heavily on the ad hoc programs, while maintaining flexibility on the use of funds to adopt to future emergencies that may occur. Ways of achieving this in updating price support programs by increasing reference prices to the PLC, ARC, higher payment limitations, and fewer eligibility requirements in a new Farm Bill. Diving down on the farm level for a moment, costs have escalated unprecedented levels with only modest gains in commodities. Equipment prices have soared and parts inventories have diminished. Wait times for parts can take up to weeks to months, which we all know we have short windows of opportunity in farming, and so that can be very impactful on our economy at the end of the year. Labor strategies are a real problem, and the cost to obtain labor is much higher than pre-pandemic. These are just some examples of what producers are dealing with and why we needed the ad hoc programs and need to make changes for a more permanent solution by increasing the commodity reference prices and marketing loan assisted prices in a new bill. Another point of emphasis is higher payment limits. As we all know, fewer people are moving back to our rural communities to farm, and many of when they get out of farm or retire, are being forced out because of the economic situation we're in. Is falling on the existing farmers to pick up those acres. So it's pushing us with more acres, and the limited amount of, the limitations are a major factor as we grow our acres moving forward. I'd like to thank you again, Senator Boozman and your staff, for all your hard work, and on behalf of Arkansas Agriculture, thank you for the opportunity to speak before you today.
Thank you. Grant.
I'm the odd man out. One in forestry, I guess.
Well, you've got a big backup here sitting to my right, so.
I have seen him get really excited about when I speak, so a lot of times he'll just shake his head and close his eyes. Now, I started on this campus probably in '79. I recruited a young lady to come back here in '80, and we've never left this campus. Been here for, I guess, 40-some years now. Been married to her for 38. She still works here full-time, 37 years, I think. But I'm going to read some of this because it's got a lot of stats in it. Ranking Member Boozman, Chancellor Doss, Dr. Blazer, Congressman Westerman, thank you once again for hosting this today. The U.S. has approximately 823 million acres of forest and woodlands, over a third of the nation's landscape. More than half of that land is privately owned, around 1/5 is federally owned or controlled. These nationalized lands provide an opportunity for the timber industry and the federal government to work together, which I'll address later on. You might be asking yourself why forestry is represented on this panel. Timber is a crop that accounts for 19 million acres, 56% of Arkansas. The top 5 traditionally recognized crops, rice, cotton, wheat, soybeans, and corn account for 6.2 million acres in Arkansas. The forest product industry employs 28,000 people, or 28,000 Arkansans, mostly in rural areas. The industry leads in southern states and only falls to third impact for the U.S. states. Total economic impact of the industry is $6.5 billion with a payroll of $1.7 billion. Outside of economical impacts, forest management is essential to mitigating climate change, preventing soil erosion, protecting our air quality, providing habitats for our animals and watershed. The most important thing that our forest and our forest industry is we need new markets. With 95% of our current consumers outside of the U.S., I think the new Farm Bill presents a great opportunity for us to fund more research on how our industry can expand current markets, establish new markets, and identify the international wood product needs that our industry stands ready to meet. In addition, research. I hope we can also look at ways to encourage the USDA and the Foreign Ag Service to prioritize our nation's timber inventory as they look to ways to increase trade for our global markets. American farmers and ranchers they help feed the world, and American foresters and industry can also supply the world with our wood products. New markets would mean new meals, new jobs, new economic growth, and our country's managed forestry. Just like here in Monticello, in our towns and communities, we in South Arkansas, the overall GDP is probably 60%. There's a few things and I don't know how everything works out at the federal level with the USDA and stuff, but the Foreign Ag Service. But another thing that we have talked about is, and I'm sure Congressman Westerman, FIA, the forest inventory, if we could look at something on the economic side of that, instead of the Forest Service and them doing inventory analysis, can we do economic analysis, and can we put that in the Farm Bill somehow? But that is one thing that we definitely need. We're growing about 23 million more tons a year than what we're harvesting, and without new markets, we're kind of dead in the water. And we have the great opportunity to increase the nation's and the state and our local GDPs. Thank you.
No, thank you. Okay, jump in there.
Thank you, Senator Boozman,
No,
for
thank you
scheduling
for being
this
here.
Farm Bill listening session, and thank you to the University of Arkansas at Monticello for hosting us. And Congressman Westerman, thanks for joining us this morning. My name is Jeffrey Hall, and I'm a crop insurance agent contracted with Sylvia's Crop Insurance, which is the largest crop insurance agency in the country. I also have a cow-calf operation outside of Little Rock. I have worked on a number of farm bills in my previous life as a lobbyist for Arkansas Farm Bureau. So crop insurance goes hand in hand with my background in the federal policy created with the farm bills. With agriculture being the #1 industry in Arkansas, it is vital for farmers to mitigate their risk and protect themselves from weather and market declines. The 2012 Farm Bill created a shift away from direct farm support and enhanced crop insurance, moving Southern farmers' focus to increase their participation to the federal crop insurance system. Since then, farmers across Arkansas and the Mid-South has continued to use crop insurance and slowly began buying a higher level of multi-peril crop insurance, as well as start looking at other products to manage farming risk, such as whole farm, margin protection, stacks, supplemental coverage option, enhanced coverage option, etc. As diverse as farming operations are in the Mid-South and throughout the Midwest, it is amazing to me that the multi-peril crop insurance, whether you select RP, which is a revenue protection, or YP, yield protection, offers a level of coverage for all farmers in all regions.
Here in Arkansas, a wet spring is way worse than a dry summer. So multi-peril crop insurance prevent planting indemnities to assist through those wet springs, compared to a dry summer, which negatively impacts the non-irrigated crops in the Midwest, all being assisted by one product used differently. But agriculture, being as diverse as it is within regions, more is needed. As the cotton industry shifted away from direct support and moving towards crop insurance area plan called STAX with an 80% subsidy, and then Rice Federation creating the margin protection product, which I have seen both add dollars to operations in years of price decline. Though I feel like rice margin protection should have a higher subsidy rate similar to the area plan in cotton stacks. With this increased subsidy, as well as a policy change allowing farmers to try the margin protection and participate by the type of rice acres, whether it's long grain or medium grain, would increase the participation of the product. These area plans, along with supplemental coverage option, enhanced coverage option, offers a level of price protection. But the problem I see in these area products, as well as the multi-peril crop insurance, is the complexity of these and the farmer understanding of how these products work in managing their risk. Not everyone has the software to show historical performance of each of these products, which we use daily to help assist customers to decide which product is best to manage their risk. The other problem I see is what Wes mentioned or alluded to at the end of his comments, and that's the premium cost that Mid-South producers see. There's no comparison of cost between regions. A Midwest farmer usually purchases an 80 or 85% coverage level of multi-peril crop insurance. That is cheaper than the Arkansas farmers can purchase a 50% level coverage. I feel this is a cause of the historical lack of crop insurance participation here in the Mid-South over the 20-year period. One solution is to use a STAX as a model of an area crop insurance top band shallow loss coverage with an 80% subsidy and open that product up to other crops. This would provide affordable shallow loss price protection product for Arkansas farmers. So with that, I appreciate my time here to speak on this panel. Thank you, Senator Boozman. Thank you, Congressman Westerman, and members of the audience. I look forward to participating in any questions that may have.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Sammy.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Senator, Congressman. Pleasure to be here and bring rural communities to the table. I'm going to take a little bit different approach. It's not going to be directly to specifics of the Farm Bill, but how the Farm Bill impacts our rural communities. There's not a retail business in our communities that's not impacted by forestry, poultry, row crop, from feed and seed to fertilizer to the nail shop. They're all impacted by agriculture. Those dollars are generated and driven into our communities through agriculture. You know, the only thing that we tip into is tourism occasionally as a mechanism to generate revenue. But as input costs go up, interest rates go up, the struggle with trying to find labor that's willing to work, that can pass a drug test, the struggles of H-2A visas is increasingly getting more difficult for the farmers each and every year. We see a rise in crime in our communities. I mean, it all trickles back to each and every one of our homes, our cities, our towns, our regions in rural America, rural Arkansas. And with a strong farm bill that supports the farmers, we will see that hopefully return back to what we once saw years ago. But right now, it's difficult. I mean, I'm a fourth generation farm family. I struggle to find folks to work. I'm blessed to have some employees that have been with us for 30 and 40 years, but they're getting old. And to go out and find somebody to replace them, it's difficult. It's difficult for farmers with the input cost, with, as they said earlier, implements, tractors, everything has gone through the roof. You sit on the sidelines for 2 months waiting on a part that you can't find anywhere in the country. It has to be imported. Those struggles are real. And far as communities, it impacts us whether we realize it or not. But I'd like to say, I want to thank you for the opportunity to come here and sit down. You mentioned about 52 of the 75 counties losing population. Many rural communities are struggling with the last census. My community, our LMI changed so drastically that we're ineligible for some of those dollars that are out there for rural communities in other parts of the country. And I don't think that our population and our LMI has changed that drastically. But as the census takers didn't get responses and they go to the door and people don't answer the door, that's automatically considered off the record for LMI. It's just another house that's above and beyond that. So that really, really impacts us. I don't know that we can go back and fix that. There are ways to go back and reassess your communities through surveys, but that's very, very difficult for some communities. And if they don't get the response, it could actually hurt them even worse. So, but privileged to be here. Thank you for the opportunity. Look forward to any questions as we close.
Thank you, Sammy. Mark?
Thank you, Senator Boozman, Congressman Westerman, for being here and allowing me to participate in this panel. My name is Mark Tyner. I'm a lender with Union Bank here in Monticello. I've been with the bank going on 24 years. I've been in agricultural lending for about 20 plus years of that. I'm involved with the timber industry with equipment loans to our logging contractors, land purchases. We also do production loans for row crop farmers, equipment loans for row crop farmers, produce farmers as well, cattle farmers as well. I'm a native of Monticello. I'm a 1985 graduate of UAM, and I'm also a member of the Monticello City Council. From a lending standpoint, some of the challenges that we see for our farmers, and I'm going to address just 4 quick topics that I'd like to address regarding the Farm Bill and some things that we see in lending. Today's environment, we talk about the program payments, the PLC, the ARC payments, and some of the panelists also mentioned this. In today's environment with interest rates up, input costs up, that price that we're recognizing as that price point is really not enough. It needs to be some other factor. When beans were $10 and corn was $4, rice is $4 or $5, cotton's 50 or 60 cents, then we needed that price point made it efficient for the farmer to be profitable, and it helped them in making debt service payments, input payments. So I think it's important that we recognize where that price needs to be in relationship to what those input costs are. This year, what I understand with urea prices being down, diesel prices being down, which is a large input cost for a farmer, that may help it a little bit. But when you're paying $5 for diesel, $1,000 for urea, and you're getting $15 beans or $13 beans may sound good, but at the end of the day, it's really not. So we would like to see those program payments, those numbers for those commodity prices to be elevated to help the farmer. We also think that crop insurance needs to be continued. It needs to be a forefront in the Farm Bill. Make it affordable, make it effective, that the farmer can, when they purchase a policy, that they feel comfortable that if Mother Nature has an event that affects them, that they can feel confident that they're going to get paid and be good utilization of the premium that they pay. One of the things is that somebody also mentioned is, we've got an aging farmer population. There's going to be a turnover where we're going to have new farmers, younger farmers coming in. And as a banker, we're going to require a guarantee. For example, a poultry farm. Right now, you got to have a minimum of 4 houses, I believe, in a poultry operation to get started. That's $2.5 to $3 million. Well, the guarantee program is set at like $1.8 million, I think, with FSA. We need those increases to allow those farmers to get in, to jump in, get involved in it, and get into the industry and start farming. We would say probably a minimum of $3 million on the guarantee program to allow for new farmers to get involved. Likewise with a row crop farmer. We're going to ask as new farmers come in, if they're not multi-generational descendants of that, then they're going to need assistance in getting into that. And it's not cheap. I mean, to make it worth your while to get into farming, these guys that actually farm, it probably needs to be a minimum of 2,000 plus acres to really make it worth your while to get into it. Well, you got to have combine, you got to have tractor, you got to have implements, and then your inputs and your operating line. So likewise, we would think that that $3 million would be a good minimum for or a good basis for FSA guaranteed loan programs. We mentioned the labor, and unfortunately, it is very difficult for our farmers and our loggers to find help. I don't think I have a farmer that does not have some type of foreign labor to help through H-2A type labor, whether it be from Mexico or from South Africa, to come in to help them. Unfortunately, our current people in the United States don't want to work. They don't want to get their hands dirty. It's too easy to get free money and not have to work. So I think those programs for labor, we need immigration reform to make it easier for people who want to come to the country and work. But we got to have it legal, and we got to have it concise. I also think that we need to streamline those efforts to make it easier to get those people into the country. I know there's a process that we have to go through to make sure that we want them here, but we need to streamline that and expedite that. FSA is a great tool for our farmers, and we have a great relationship, the banks do, or we do, with our local agencies. But when it comes time to calculating PLC payments and getting all of that program in place, that is really if you've never done the calculation, we calculate that and include that in our cash flows if they qualify. And to calculate a PLC payment is really a pretty extensive deal. You got to take your base acreage of your farm number, you get a % of that, but to calculate that is pretty difficult. I think that needs to be streamlined. I'm not too sure that those base acres and those yields that they use for that should be increased. I mean, some of those yields that they're using are from yields from 30, 40, 50 years ago. Do we use an average yield from that number? No. Should we take a more recent yield to calculate? So if I've got a farm and I'm raising soybeans, but that farm that I'm farming on does not have a soybean basis, then I don't think I qualify for a PLC payment. And if it do, then that number that they're basing your yield on to calculate that payment amount is very, very low. So I think we need to reevaluate how we calculate that PLC payment for the farmers. We're here for them. It is the backbone of this country. Agriculture is. Timber is the backbone of the area here in southeast Arkansas. Union Bank is heavily entrenched in helping and working with those people in that industries, and we want to continue that. But there are some issues that we think could help from a banking standpoint to allow us to help our customers in being profitable and obtaining all the opportunities that they can.
Well, thank all of you. Again, that's very helpful, pointing out some of the challenges that we have in rural America that we need to work on in the new Farm Bill. Tell me, Mark, with the current ARC PLC crop insurance payments, high interest rates the way they are now, the regulatory atmosphere that you have to deal with, how's that going to affect your ability to actually give our farm community the loans that they need going forward?
Well, you know, as you just said, Senator, everything is elevated through inflation. Interest rates are, you know, prime today is 7.75% with anticipation of at least a 25, if not a 50 basis point bump next month. So that makes prime interest rate 8 to 8.5%, and that's where we fund our loans off of.
As compared to what was it a couple years ago?
A couple of years ago, even prior to the COVID pandemic, prime was 5%, 4 to 5%, ranging however it went. So you've had a doubling in interest rates over the last, 2 or 3 years. Equipment prices go up, input costs go up, but just the need for the farmer to have a security that they'll have the support from the government or from our country to help provide those funds. Now, from a regulatory standpoint, I'm not sure what, the ins and outs of that, I'll be honest with you. I just know that these farmers depend on insurance programs and some subsidized payments. There's years that they have a good year. I mean, a couple of years ago, if you bought your inputs right before the pandemic and you bought low and then the prices went up because of the pandemic, they had a good year. But since then, I mean, it's been a challenge because of all of the inflated costs that are involved with that.
Very good. Bruce?
I want to say thank you to all the panelists for great input. The neat thing about living in Arkansas in a rural state is when it comes to issues on the Farm Bill, an expert is no more than a phone call away, and it's evident here with all the expertise that we have at the table today. But as I was listening to the testimony, a lot of was mentioned about labor cost, about input cost, about higher interest rates, inflation, and currently the federal government's response has been to raise interest rates to try to lower inflation, which is something you can do on the monetary side. But we know that if we could get more supply, if we could do stuff on the supply side, it would help in the long term to drop inflation even more. And we also know that when there are supply side constraints with inflation, that our consumers, mine and Senator Boozman's constituents, are the ones that are paying the cost for that, as well as the producers. So, and I can't remember who was talking about the cost of urea and diesel fuel, how it's a little bit lower this year, but we know that energy costs are foundational to input costs, and they get magnified all the way through the growing and producing. But as we look at policy to improve the supply side for Arkansas agriculture, what would, and I'll just open it up to whoever wants to throw this out, what are the main areas of focus? I know I've heard markets, labor, fuel, fertilizer, interest rates. Where would you tell us to direct our focus?
Let's have a chip at it.
Jump in.
Obviously, at our markets, open up new opportunities. China impacts the cotton industry drastically, and we never know where they're going to be. It's like a secret. Figure out a way that we can do business with them. We don't need them to I know that we've got our problems there, but open up markets where we can get our commodities and get a fair price for them, and feed the world.
And in somebody's testimony, they were talking about India and China heavily subsidizing certain commodities and flooding the markets with those. So how do you open new markets when you're competing against foreign governments? That's a Senator Boozman. He's real smart.
Well, the answer to that is we're constantly working hard to get new markets. Where's West Ward? Is West? West, what percentage do we export? About 40%?
Almost 40%.
Yeah. So we, as you all have pointed out, we've got to have the attitude. We got some customers here at home, in the United States, but the vast majority of our customers are overseas. And we've got to constantly, seek out new markets. The problem is we work these deals, we do what we're supposed to, they don't do what they're supposed to, and there's no enforcement. So we're working really hard. I know you're working hard. I'm working hard. Congress, we're pushing the administration to actually enforce the agreements that we have. I do think that China is a wild card. They're such a huge nation. They're buying lots of stuff. But I think we're wise in again, seeking new markets there, but realizing that we have to diversify those markets because they're subject to political constraints, and that's a problem. Sammy, tell us about what does it do to a community if you lose your gin or if you lose your mill or?
Well, as far as fiber industry, we've lost so much infrastructure over the years. And, just as in this past year, we have a gin in Lake Village. There was a plant in Mississippi that closed. It had been there over 100 years. So those volumes have to go somewhere. When markets go up, the farmers are going to try to follow those markets. But when you lose that infrastructure, it's very, very difficult to rebuild, not knowing what the next year or the following year from there is going to bring you.
Very good. You want to ask about forestry?
Yeah, the senator asked if I wanted to talk about forestry, and it's always something I like to talk about. But as we look at Arkansas, and Grant, I think you talked about the amount of forests that are here, and also the part of the component of the economy that forestry makes up. And everything that was said about production agriculture on buying equipment, I mean, that's true for forestry. If you want to set up a new logging crew, you're talking about a couple of $1 million. And if you don't have loggers, you can't get products to the mill. We're seeing some developments with mass timber that's taking off here in Arkansas, but we also need markets for small diameter materials and residuals. So that's where I'm really excited about biochar, because it not only provides a market for small diameter materials, it also produces a product that makes production agriculture more productive. It increases the soil's water holding capacity and nutrient holding capacity, and makes the water and nutrients more available for plant uptake. Where do you see the main focuses on new markets should be, and what my approach is the government should fund research and let the private sector commercialize it, but where do you see the government's role and in the Farm Bill where we can be most effective for producing more markets?
Research, like you say, but when you're growing 23 million more tons a year than you're producing, something in the Farm Bill, and I saw a stat the other day that the world GDP in forestry was 150 million. 90% of that was carbon. We may need to look at some carbon offsets and stuff to help generate profits for our landowners. But without new markets to use this, like biofuels, and we have a great opportunity here. We could increase our GDP tremendously, not just locally, but state and federally. But without new markets, without those mills, and we have one coming to Camden, and without those, we're going to have unhealthy forests. We have a new strain, I guess, of needle blight that we think are coming into southeast Arkansas, and it's devastating some of our older timber down there, pine. And I don't know, but as interest rates go up, as fuel and input costs go up, we may have to look at some of the tariffs that we look at, to protect the businesses and industry that we have here today.
Mike?
I'd just like to make a comment about that. we have a lot of customers, and we have, that's a little older than I am, that as a part of their retirement, whether it was a family farm or they were accumulated money to buy smaller parcels of land, that they could plant into pine, in a plantation, and use to supplement their income as they age or as they retire. And with the way the timber industry has gone, there's a lot of people in their like 60s, 70s, and even 80s who have that timber that may need to be cut, but there's not a market for it. The corporate landowners really have the quotas to the mills, so they're sitting there with this investment with nothing that they can do for it. And some of them may have debt on that they're depending on being able to harvest that timber to service that debt. So a new market for pine timber in particular, I think it's critical for a lot of the smaller landowner, individual landowners.
And most of your loggers want to work for an industrial landowner because they have thousands of acres and they can get wintertime work and
Right, and the with all the emphasis on climate, forests are the link pin to a healthy environment and to, as Roosevelt said, trees are the lungs of the earth. They pull carbon out of the atmosphere. But there's a disconnect with the need for markets and the need and how that promotes healthy forests. I saw a statistic that the number one cause of deforestation in the U.S. is development. So it's when the value of owning timberland is not high enough to keep the timberland like these private landowners you're talking about, then they start looking for other markets, and a lot of times that's development where you lose the forest. So I think we've got a real opportunity with the emphasis on climate and on environment and the role that forests play in that, and we just need to be able to promote forestry and forest products more on a larger scale.
some of our mills will actually not purchase timber if you're not going to keep it in forestry. If you're going to put it in housing or whatever, there's a certain amount that they want. So.
And I've seen mature forest cut so solar farms could be put up. So there's a real disconnect on benefits to the environment.
And we've done a bad job of telling our story because we are carbon neutral. Our industry is very important to sequester carbon. And we've done a bad job of telling our story over the years.
What we want to do is make it such that we give you the tools, those of you that are interested in participating in, at some point selling credits through private industry. In other words, selling a credit, this and that. We want you to have the ability, if you'd like to do that, if it becomes profitable to do that, that you're able to get into that market. And forestry really does lend itself because the life cycle is such that you're sequestering carbon, you cut the tree down, it goes to lumber, that's still sequestered carbon. The list goes on and on. It's more difficult with our other crops, but it's possible. And again, if that becomes something that is is a market where we can value add the things you do, we certainly want to do that. On the other hand, we're not going to get ourselves in a situation where, whether or not you're doing it, this is going to be a totally voluntary program. We're not going to get ourselves in a situation where you have to do certain things, or you don't get to participate in crop insurance, you don't get to participate in ARC or PLC, or you're somehow, dinged if you're not climate friendly enough. Okay. That's a big deal. It's something that the administration is pushing hard. You can look at some of the other countries throughout the world, places like Germany, places like the Netherlands, where that is really, it's never enough. And so again, voluntary is fine. We're going to create the opportunities for you. What we're not going to do is make it where somebody in Washington is deciding, how you grow things, whether or not you're climate friendly enough, or we'll get ourselves in a big problem. Mr. Hall, Jeff, crop insurance. Can you talk a little bit about what's the biggest hurdle to producer participation in the federal crop insurance program? And then again, you mentioned, increases in ARC, PLC, crop insurance, whatever. What advices have you got as we do the Farm Bill, specific advice? You mentioned raising reference prices, but what are the problems if people do want to get in the program? What are the problems in getting into it? And then, the question was raised, why are the rates five and a half times more here than they are in Illinois?
Yeah, and I think Wes really pointed out a particular situation that really illustrates part of the problem that we see every day whenever I'm working with farmers, and that's the complexity of the program and the premium cost here in Arkansas. Like I said earlier, I feel like because of the way the traditional farm bills have provided more of direct support to Arkansas agriculture, then the participation or lack thereof of crop insurance products, because we utilize the funds on irrigation and leveling land and those sort of aspects of the farm rather than staying non-irrigated. And so that was our crop insurance dollars, or our risk management dollars back 10 plus years ago. But now, as we've seen some of these new products come, because we often talk about the shallow loss band coverage, and those products are out there, the utilization and the familiarity of how they work in managing your price risk is going to take some time to educate farmers on how productive they would be in price loss situations. So I think the cost, just due to the actuarial rating system that RMA uses with the lack of historical participation here in Arkansas is part of that premium increase that we see here versus in the Midwest. And then the complexity. There's a lot of moving parts in crop insurance, and how you get it organized and created for your particular situation in various operations up and down the Delta.
Well, we want the parts moving where there's more balance. We'll work on that. Bruce has got another engagement, so I'm going to kind of let him ask whatever he would like to ask right now, and then any comments you've got, Bruce, about.
Yeah, well, thank you again, Senator, for letting me be a part.
We
of
appreciate you squeezing us in.
Any time, and again, thank the panelists. I do want to make sure that everybody knows my staff, Gene Higginbotham, and Brendan and Yancey. Brendan's out of the Hot Springs office, Yancey's out of the El Dorado office, and Senator Boozman, and he's going to be the lead, I would say, in Congress on the Farm Bill, definitely on our state delegation, but it's very important to all of us. We're going to be working to bring information to the Farm Bill. I don't know if it'll start in the House or start in the Senate, but we will work to make sure we get as many priorities as we can in whichever version we work on. We'll continue to work with Senator Boozman, but if you all have specific things that we can help with, feel free to reach out to me or to our staff. And this is about rural America. I say the divide in our country is probably more urban than rural than it even is Republican and Democrat right now. And we've got to make sure that our rural interests are protected across this country, or else the whole country is going to suffer greatly. So again, thank you to all the ag producers and to everybody on the panel, to UAM and Senator Boozman. And I've got a luncheon in Little Rock I'm supposed to speak at, so I'm going to have
That's a good excuse. Thank you so much for being here. Nobody does a better job than Bruce. We're very, very proud of him, and I learned a long time ago, you don't want to ask Bruce a question unless you really want to know the answer. We were at a solar farm, and Bruce being an engineer and then also, a Yale forester, all of these things. I said, Bruce, tell me about this or that was going on at the solar farm. And 30 minutes later, he was still trying to help me understand exactly what was going on. So again, there's nobody that does a better job in Congress. So let's ask a few more things, and then again, I want to open it up to the audience. Any questions or comments you've got are welcome. Jason, tell me a little bit about the conservation practices and tools that you most utilize. What are the ones that are working? What do we need to beef up? And again, if we didn't support the tools that you're using, how would that negatively impact your ability to do what you do?
Well, we currently certainly try to apply for a lot of the EQIP programs that we can get into. Unfortunately, in our county, it seems like we always get the short end of the stick, and funding runs out pretty quickly. I'm sure most people probably experience the same problems, but we've done a real good job of being able to use the cover crops. We've initiated a lot of biologicals on our farm, and through those things, in a good crop rotation is something that we're doing also. We're putting a lot of nitrates back in the ground through the peanuts, a lot of organic matter with the peanuts and the corn rotating through, and we've been able to cut back a lot on nitrogen and other things. But moving forward, I'd love to see more funding for the EQIP, because we're only able to do so much of our cover crops, because it is a very expensive cost. Timely to go out there in the fall, especially when you're harvesting 2,200 acres of peanuts and all of your, we kind of traded off all your cotton module builders and bowl baskets for peanut equipment in the fall. So we're really hamstrung. It's hard to get all that cover crop out. So the assistance to help pay for it can allow us to get more equipment out there to do that, because we've seen very strong results from, the cover crops allowing us to maintain our soil erosion in the bottom of the fields. We do have ground that can erode very easily. So that and other programs with the pipe structures we can put at the bottom of the fields, build up our roads, maintain all that topsoil's been a priority on our farm for a very long time.
Very good. Jim, what does a strengthened safety net look like for your farmers?
I think a strengthened safety net would just be crop insurance that brings out a lot of points that they brought up today, higher reference prices that reflect the total risk we have. So the PLC in the rice industry gives us the ability to compete with bad actors such as India. Just recently I was standing in a field of Thai jasmine outside of Bangkok. The guy was barefoot. He'd been working all day to plant his farm, little 2 or 3 acre field. He can hand plant it, hand harvest it, and get it to US cheaper than we can. We can't compete because other governments are subsidizing their labor so to the point they want to keep them small stakeholders on the farm at all costs. And we just need help with farm markets.
Very good. Wes, for those producers that participate in ARC or PLC, how do you make the decision, and what improvements could be made to the programs?
Well, that's a tough one, because I pay somebody to help me make those decisions. So
Well, that's a good answer.
I really can't speak intelligently on that.
Very good. Anybody, any comments about that? ARC PLC, how we need to increase reference prices is one thing. Anything else we need to do to the program to make it more usable? Sounds like it could be more usable if you have to hire somebody to figure it out for you.
I will say one positive thing that I feel like is when the Farm Bill created the opportunity for farmers to choose what product, or what program, whether it's ARC or PLC, on an annual basis.
Versus the other. Good.
That
That's good to know.
was, besides locking yourself in for the
Right.
entire bill.
Right.
And then as we see input costs continue to go up, those reference prices are in statute.
Right.
So they haven't been able to go up annually.
They do increase
ARC
with
does
inflation.
because of the marketing year average price with PLC.
John?
Do they? Okay.
They both do. That's something that people don't understand,
Okay.
but they actually both do. What will give us an example of a reference price going? John is our economist. He used to be the Farm Bureau economist and is really one of the best ag economists in the country. Trying to throw you a bone.
The soy reference price would be $9.66 by the time we finish the farm bill at one time. Corn will be close to $4. The current prices hold. But in the case of Arkansas, rice, we're not going to see the effective reference price.
Right.
So their reference price will not increase. But the higher prices we see today will increase ARC and PLC support for corn, soybeans, wheat, oats, and
Very good. Okay, now this is the time that you get to ask any easy questions that you've got on your mind, and I'll be glad to, or not necessarily questions, really just what is on your mind. You know, if you've got any comments, we've heard a lot about, you know, the panel's opinion as to what we need to do to make things better. This is the time, you know, for you to jump in and tell us. You all, as I said earlier, you all are out there fighting the battle in different ways. If you've got any suggestions, like I say, jump in and let's do it.
I'll start.
Yeah.
Well, I want to be a little hotter than Grant, and I grow things in heartbeats. I'm on the animal side.
Okay.
So with the ag bill, I'm the animal scientist here at UAM now. I teach animal science here at UAM. It's odd for me to be here, not there, talking this direction. I'm a UAM grad, and went on to vet school, became a veterinarian practice in South Arkansas in this area, born in Monticello for a couple of decades, sold my practices, and now I'm here really to impact students. As a local cattleman, it's really impossible for a small producer to be profitable. I'll let you know that. It's just the input costs are too high. We have one thing we've greatly benefited from, and I wish he was still here, is the wild boar depopulation efforts. That in my farm alone, which is a small 100-acre farm, we've killed over, or trapped and removed over 200 hogs in the last year and a half. And I know that helps on the crop side as well, because they're greatly destructive. We need to continue that. One of the aspects that makes the cattle producer and the local small farmer unprofitable is the rural veterinary shortage. We need to address that. The high student debt that students come out with. They can't put a vet box in the back of a truck and serve the producer and pay their bills. So we've got to increase prices of the animals that they're selling, or make it to where veterinary students can pay down their debt so that they can serve the community. There's a lot of desire there. I was in Mississippi State Vet School this weekend. There's a lot of desire to do that. It's just they're smart enough to do math and to know that they can't do that when they graduate. So that needs to be addressed. I will say that the demographics are changing. These are all white males up here. I teach mostly females, and there's a lot of minorities that are coming in to on the animal science side, which is a plus, a win. And we have more people call us wanting our graduates than we have graduates to fill those positions. So it is a high demand, and I think we should, as UAM, as a small rural country college in the country, we need to promote that to our students, that there's still value in having a college degree for these kids that want to serve in our area in the agricultural field. We also lead by example here with our humane treatment of animals. We promote pain relief. These are all pluses. These are all beneficial, cost effective, and actually profitable for farmers to employ. So those are things that we can promote here. We also have a changing demographics, and to where we've introduced small ruminants, a sheep population on our campus to benefit the local needs as well because of the changes in population in our area. So these are all things on the animal science side that help our small area to be addressed and continue to be addressed by you and others.
Now, thank you very much. And again, that's such an important part of agriculture and the Farm Bill. And I appreciate you pointed out a number of really good things that are so important. We do need to figure out how we can get through incentives to get more vets into rural America. I know how important that is, with whether it's student loans or other things that we can do. The thing that also is so important is the pandemic issues that we face: avian flu, African swine flu, fever, all of these things that we've seen how they can be so decimating. The pandemic that we faced as a nation, those things happen amongst animals. So we're going to be working really hard to beef that up and make sure that those things are in place too. I'm encouraged by the fact that you mentioned that you've got a lot of females in your class. Carly and Macy are a good example of that. These are two young people that literally could do anything they wanted to do. They've got it all together, and yet have chosen to be involved in agriculture and will be the future leader. They're already leaders, but the future leaders. Okay, we had one back here. Yes, sir.
Quick comment about interest rates. Just to clarify, March of 2020, the prime was 3.25, and it come down just a little bit from there in 19. March of 2022 is when the rate started increasing. So production loans last year, if you certainly got in early, you really didn't have any effect on interest rates. Now, equipment purchases in the last 6 months, 8 months, of course, it's only getting higher. So this will be the first year that you'll have a really dramatic increase in the production side on the row crop farm. Today, prime 7.75. Futures are saying it'll be 8.25, 8.5, 8.75 the next 2 or 3 months. So anyway, I just want to clarify what the rates have done. Hopefully, because Carrie and I were in McGee and Dumas last week with the extension service, and they were talking about some inputs maybe coming down a little bit for 2023. Maybe the inputs will come down enough to offset the increase in the production loans for 2023. I just want to make that comment.
No, thank you, and that's so important. They tell me again, because the economy is still pretty hot in some ways, that we're talking about quarter increases at least every 6 weeks for the next foreseeable future. So this is a big deal. And it's just I can't control that. You can't control it, but it is something that you need to be aware of, as we go forward. And we need to be aware of it as we write the farm bill, that this is happening and that we need to prepare for it. And certainly that affects the safety nets that you need, so you can go to the bank and continue to give us the safest, cheapest food supply of any place in the world, which you can be so very proud of. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Matt Peltiano, I'm director of the Arkansas Center for Forest Business, and one of the first things I want to do is say thank you for the SNAP program. I was a beneficiary of it when my mother was on SNAP for a couple of years in the 1970s, and obviously it did what it wanted. She got off SNAP, she got her college degree, and she was able to provide for her family. So I just wanted to say that. Also, my wife is a dietitian, works for mainline health clinics, and they're doing health education there. And so that public-private partnership for nutrition and health education is really important. So now I'm going to get to my areas of expertise. So we talked about certain titles. The carbon markets in the United States are failing southern forests. You mentioned lumber as a source of carbon sequestration. That's true, but I can't trade that. No one will allow me to trade that. Carbon markets are only in living trees. And southern forests cycle that carbon every 30 years, so there's no net carbon gain, which means southern foresters, southern landowners are really not benefiting from the carbon market except in unusual circumstances. So we need to get wood products. The other part is the energy policy, I believe in Title IX, missing the wood pellet industry. It's functional, it operates now. For example, in most southern states, like Arkansas, 75% of our energy comes from coal. We can easily shift that into coal and wood pellets, and gas and wood pellets, and even continuously into wood pellets. The problem is that we've got this overabundance of timber in small diameter markets. We don't have time to wait. We've doubled our biomass restaurants in the last 40 years in the state of Arkansas. We are headed for restaurant crises if we don't thin these forests. And so that technology is there, it's available today. And we do need some assistance in the Farm Bill to get the program started. Could mention also White Bluff here in Arkansas, the power generation. I believe it's about 4 megawatts of power generation, or no, gigawatts, I believe, power generation. It's set to go offline due to environmental settlement they had in the Sierra Club by the end of this, at the end of this decade. Where's the durable power to replace that? We could green that facility up. The other part that I'd like to mention, though, and I will sit down because otherwise it's going to be a long time. Wood Innovation Grant Program support is incredible. But I'd also like to see them perhaps in Title 12, we've talked about crop insurance. What about water insurance to assist that? Right now in the state of Arkansas, you can't get insured to drive a log truck unless you've been working 2 years. Which means a logger has to pay an apprentice 2 years to sit in a log truck before the insurance industry will come. I think there's a vital gap there. We can't get drivers. And if we can't get log truck drivers, we can't move timber from the woods to the mills. It's an absolutely critical component. So when we talk about Farm Bill providing insurance benefits for producers, we really need to think of loggers as producers in the Farm Bill. And then the last thing I would mention also is rural development, rural energy saving program, the financing offer of renewable energy. Working with Dr. Doss on a UAM project to basically build a wood energy power facility that would operate off-grid here on campus. And so, for example, everyone was here in the ice storm, and how many folks in here were without power for a period of time? What we have at UAM served as UAM students, we also in the community, the university center served as a warming, cooling, and a food center for people in the community when we're out of power. And that happens whether it's a tornado in the summer or whether it's an ice storm in the winter. So we've got incentives to do that, and so I would really like to see that strengthened as well. And particularly what we would have here at the university is a way to train and educate people in power generation, biomass power generation as well. That can be added to our curriculum. So with that, I'm going to sit down. Thank you.
No, that's excellent. We do appreciate it very, very much. And those are things that I think are great ideas, ways that we can, are real ideas that we can value add the tremendous resource that we have here. And so, we look forward to working with you. Regarding SNAP, we have done a lot with SNAP. The Farm Bill is the Farm Bill, but it's our baseline now. It started out at $867 billion. Is that right, John? In that ballpark right now with just inflation increases, whatever, we're at what, $1.4 trillion, $1.5 trillion, and about 86% of that is 82%. 82% is SNAP. So the Farm Bill is called the Farm Bill, but the vast majority of those dollars are in nutrition. And so it is important. It's something that will be continue to be a big part in the Farm Bill, and making sure that it works the way it did for your family, in the sense of helping people, and then providing other programs where you get off of dependency, and then you're just such a tremendous example of that. We're very, very proud of that. Give yourself a pat. Very good. Anybody else got any? Yes, sir.
My name is Stephen Carter of Royalty Farms, and across Arkansas. I live about out south here. I got 2 or 3 things I'd like to say. And first of all, I want to thank you for allowing us to voice concerns with the agriculture industry. But I represent the specialty crops, vegetables, tomatoes, cucumbers, that kind of stuff. First of all, and I've heard them mention the same things that I'm concerned about, is with the H2A program, we bring in a little over 100 guys down to cross it, and if there's any way you could streamline that process, if there was an opportunity to where I understand and I agree with what they go through, to make sure we're bringing in safe people into the United States to do our work, because we cannot find anybody that's gonna take a 5-gallon bucket and go out there and pick tomatoes. Nobody's gonna take that job. So if it wasn't for the H-2A program, we'd be out of business. There would be none. But is there any way that program could, where all of what they go through in the year's time to get them up here, if they don't have any trouble, they go home when they're supposed to, they sign the paper when they go back across the border, that the next year that they're already pre-qualified to where we don't have to pay again, because we're spending in the neighborhood of about $35,000 a year just to bring workers back and forth and back and forth. And that's just here. We also farm about an hour south of St. Louis for another company, and now up there we'll bring in about 180 workers on the H-2A program. But if there's any way that you could do that to fix it to where if they qualify this year to come up here to get a work visa with no trouble, they go home, do everything, dot their I's, cross their T's, that the next year they're already qualified to where we don't have to pay again, that would be a big help. Next thing, we have to...
Let's talk about that for a second, because I'm very supportive of H-2A. Many of you have had problems. Our office, other offices have stepped in to try and grease the skids, when you run into problems, and we're committed to doing that. Remember that as you have problems. So I agree with you totally. It makes no sense. The government tends to make it as difficult as they can make it. And it's really irritating because you've got a situation where, people like yourself desperately need this labor. People just simply aren't doing this work, won't do this work. Labor's difficult no matter what you offer. Why would they come and work hard, in the situations, that you're offering? I mean, it's a way of life. You've got to enjoy that. But now with the economy the way it is, people are screaming and paying through the nose for, as someone said, if you can get somebody that'll used to be show up and pass the drug test. Now it's show up most of the time, not all the time, but sometime. But so again, it's just so difficult. But all the hoops you've got to jump through, and then again, the threat of the government, looking and clawing back and punishing and all that, when you've got 250,000 people streaming across the border now without, it's just 250,000 caught, probably a third of that more that are just going unchecked, without any, it makes no sense at all. So I'm with you 100%, and I hope, necessity is the mother of invention, and we truly are. You're experiencing, all of you are experiencing, this isn't a problem, this is a crisis in regard to getting you the labor that you need. So hopefully we will continue to put enough pressure that we can get some common sense changes like that, which make all the sense in the world. Because the other thing too is, it costs you money. It costs them money and time when they could be doing other things more productive than looking at somebody that's got a proven track record of being who they are, behaving themselves. The list goes on and on.
What we're talking, if they implement something like that, like a type program, they just opened up 3 more offices because they can't get the flow across the border from Monterey to Weber Laredo and Constance down there. So they just opened up 3 more offices. But they wouldn't have to do that if they could have streamlined it.
No, you're exactly right. And then they could have concentrated on the border.
Exactly. Another way that would be a concern for me, we do, like I said, we do 3 programs, 3 contracts a year. We bring up a crew that helps us get our seeding done and our work done at the beginning. Then we bring in a bigger crew when we have to put in our sticks and prune and tie. Then we bring in a 3rd crew when it's time to harvest, when we need most of our hands for harvest and packing. And I understand, I was told that they considered looking at a staggered entry deal to where we only had to apply and jump through those rings and hoops once. But I don't think it passed. Did they actually look at something like that? If there's any way that they would approve a staggered entry where we only had to do all this one time, and then we could bring 20 workers in February, 30 workers in March or April, and then bring in the bulk at the end of May, 1st of June for harvesting, and we would only have to cut down our cost, 66% right off the bat, and we end up with the same number of workers. We got all our problems solved, but we only cost us money one time. But that would be the big help.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree at all. We'll pursue that.
The other one was crop insurance that they talked about. Several of them touched base on crop insurance. Kind of two things. I guess with tomatoes, we are able to have life insurance. We do have life insurance, but to my understanding, I've asked why our premiums are going up every year, and they say they're pulling the government subsidies away from us. It's almost the point that I can't afford the crop insurance on tomatoes anymore. I mean, if matter of fact, year before last, when we really perfect this, but my premium on our tomatoes, just to have a 60% policy cost me $90,000. I gotta have that crop insurance on my tomatoes, or the guys that I'm borrowing money from, they're not gonna loan me that money. So it's borderline the fact that I don't, if I don't have an exact to pay my premium, I don't know what I'm gonna do. So crop insurance is a humongous concern. All right, on the other side of the crop that we grow that we cannot have a life insurance on, we have the NAP insurance. Well, we have to have a 50% loss, and then of course they do all theirs by 100 weeks. Once we have that 50% loss, we only get paid 50% of the money. So they were talking about adjusting the rates that crop insurance covers. That would be a big deal for us on specialty crops as well. The other one was marketing. Everybody mentioned marketing. Well, if they're trying to open markets up in other countries to go that direction, I understand that, and I understand that 100%. Mine is other countries bringing their product into the United States. So we're sitting here and we got retailers tell us, I'm talking about a year ahead of time, there's not going to be no increase in the price of your produce next year. But the inputs skyrocketed. The government tells me what I got to pay these H2A boards that's coming up here. They dictate to us. We're paying this year right at $14.59 in Arkansas. It's over $17 in Missouri per picker. Is there any way we can look at controlling the flow of the produce that's coming in from these other countries? The hothouse tomatoes coming out of Canada, they are killing the tomato industry here in Arkansas. Thank you.
No, thank you so much. And again, it's like we said earlier, we work hard to get these agreements, and then again, the other side doesn't play by the rules. So you've got Canada, you've got Mexico doing the same thing, and it's a huge problem. The sad thing is I've drugged the people over to the office that are in charge of the HTA program. And it doesn't seem to matter what administration it is, but they'll look at you and tell you that, that you're taking jobs from Americans, which my comment is, go to the farms, spend some time there, and then come back and, talk to me. So it's just it's a huge problem. It is something that we are working on, but this administration, other administrations have not been very helpful.
When they tell you that they're taking jobs away from the Americans, we have to hire the ones that apply, that have any kind of qualifications, all do this job.
No, I understand totally, So, very much. Yeah, you mentioned logging truckers,
I'm not complaining, but I'm telling you, it's a guy starting out. We farmed a long time. A guy started out, we put him out of business. Even if he had insurance, because most of the time it doesn't pay. And Jeffrey hit some points there. I don't know that it works where we are on certain things. We're 100% irrigated. We've got drainage. We keep our ditches cleaned out. We have our own track hoe. Everything like that. The cost of it and what we can do, maybe we need a different kind of program for where we farm or crop. Maybe we need a different crop insurance for each state. I don't know. Maybe you do know. I don't know. I know that what I had doesn't work. We don't buy 85% coverage. I don't know that would be feasible because we're not going to have that kind of event every year. But the one time you have it makes you wonder. But again, I thank the university. I am a 74 graduate of this school. I thank the university for having this. Instead of having to drive to Jonesboro, Arkansas, my mama's alma mater, I can come right here to this. And it's a good thing. I mean, I like to see you down in the Delta. I appreciate you coming.
Well, it is a good thing, and when the last Farm Bill was written, you know, it's hard to imagine, but things seemed, you know, so stable then compared to now. So we're seeing this generational changing in interest rates, inputs, the supply chain breakdown, on-time delivery is almost too efficient till it's not, and then it's a disaster. You know, we don't have any warehouses anymore. The warehouses are the trucks on the road and the barges, you know, things like that. So in this Farm Bill, we've got to adjust based on what's going on today, and that's really what this is all about. You know, is just that. One thing that has happened, we're having these 200-year events, you know, every couple of years.
Every year.
And you know, one year the Mississippi will be, you know, at the highest ever, and then you'll have it such that, like we've, you know, experienced recently, where it's been so low that you have to manage barge traffic and blast and everything else. So Congress, for the last several years, the last few years, has actually come up with assistance for these things, but there's no guarantee. You know, it's just kind of slipshod. We were able to provide some help, but that traditionally has not been done. So it's slipshod. And then two, once we make the decision that we're going to provide the help, it might be 2 years before you get it, and you're in big trouble during that time. So we're trying to figure out a way to capture those dollars and see if we can do a better job of putting that somehow into the safety net, and then providing a better, as you point out, a better insurance product. And like you say, it's not a one-size-fits-all, because it just doesn't work. So that's a challenge, and that's something that we're working really hard on to see if we can come up with something that would be much more equitable and much more dependable, so that you could be part of that, and then know, if this or that event happens, you're going to get X amount, and you're going to get it in a timely fashion. So, but thank you very much. I'm sorry, back here. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, Senator. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it, for your service and what I would call your sacrifice. I don't know why you do it, but I'm glad. And for the panel, you all brought out great points. And I think, we talk a lot about opioid addiction and other things and other problems that our country has. I think our greatest addiction, which will also solve a lot of these underlying smaller conditions, is our addiction to welfare. And that's all I'm going to say.
Well, you need to help us with that, and the good news is I was in. This university is a great example of that, in the sense that there's so many students that come out of here that are first generation graduates. One program that I really, really, really like. I went to the University of Arkansas and played football. I started my football career in boys club football, went to junior high, and in junior high, I was at Northside in Fort Smith, and back then, they were pretty good. What they did was they would take the junior high players and they would bring them over to Northside when you were still in junior high, and you would be with the big boys. But you found out, hey, I can do this. People are nice over here. I can compete. And so as a result, their participation rate was so much greater. But getting young people in high school, to facilities like this, and to our VOTECs that do such a good job, that don't have any experience with anybody else that's ever done that, really pushing them in there. That makes a huge difference. You figure out pretty quickly, hey, I can compete. And then the idea that, we talked about veterinary medicine and the challenges there with the expenses you get out. But there's a lot of students now that can actually have significant amounts of college credit by the time they graduate from high school. Those are the programs that we really need to look at. And as you say, generational welfare it's bad for the country, and it's worse for the individuals. You know, that again, we don't provide the resources and the push to push forward. And the one thing that's going on right now, we've got an economy that if you want to work, and in fact, one of the big problems we've got is, you know, entities like this, our VOTEX, you get in those programs, and you get halfway through it. Somebody comes along, and if you're a welder or a plumber or whatever the electrician, you name it, somebody will come along and offer you more money than you ever thought you'd make in a life, you know, in a profession. And so you quit and you go, you know, with the worker. Well, that dings you then. You know, it looks like you've got a high dropout rate, where the opposite is true. You know, you're doing such a good job and in such demand. So we got all these things that we got to work through, but I don't disagree with you.
Senator Bowden,
Yes, sir.
one thing we haven't talked about today that affects not just road croppers, forestry, farmer, ranchers, your everyday people, is we need to work on the waters of the U.S. and get the definition nailed down, because that affects everybody.
I agree.
And we can address that somehow.
Well, I think eventually the court is going to have to address it. That's where it always winds up. And you know, hopefully as it winds through the current Supreme Court, that Supreme Court does a little bit better of actually looking at the intent of laws and look at the Constitution. I think it's pretty clear that the Constitution says navigable waters, and you can draw a nexus between waters going into those navigable waters, but the waters of the U.S. as they've been framed in the past would include, you know, 97% of Arkansas waters, which again, we need to let the states do a good job. Arkansas will do a good job and use some common sense and the science. That's what we need to do with all of these things, common sense and science, and then, you know, work it out. One more question. Yes, sir.
Senator Boozman, I'm Joe Friend. I graduated from UAM in '76. Spent my entire career working with private landowners in the forestry sector. I now currently work with the University of Arkansas Pine Bluff, helping minority landowners obtain sustainable forestry on their property. I just want to say I appreciate the EQIP money that's in the Farm Bill to help forestry, and would like to encourage to see, if possible, more dollars being put into the EQIP program to help private landowners in forestry.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your hard work at UAPB, and again, with their agriculture, that and their aquatic program, again, you know, are doing really good things. So I hear you loud and clear, and that's I think if I had something that you know, I think you all would agree with me, my staff, that you know, I do countless meetings about these kind of things, and then they do the same. The QUIP is one of the things that you know, just comes up constantly. It's a program that has worked. We just need to get more dollars into it to make it such that more people can participate, you know, more funding. So, well, yes, ma'am. This is the boss.
Thank you so much for being at UAM today and having this listening tour, and we're extraordinarily appreciative of all of you who came today. And a takeaway that I have from hearing all the comments is about anything that we can do to minimize the issues that these individuals are experiencing or to eliminate some of these issues. In my mind, only builds an environment where our young people really do want to go into agriculture and forestry. As I listened about generational farmers, and I heard some information about how hard it's going to be if you're not in a generational farm to actually start an operation. But all these barriers that we heard today could be little deterrents to young people who want to choose have outstanding researchers and outstanding faculty on this campus. We also have 2 colleges of technology who offer programs like CDL training. I believe Mr. Ware is our Vice Chancellor for College of Technology, and he's working with an Ag Tech apprenticeship program right now with one of our producers here locally to get our young people out and learning how to work that equipment early in their career. So hands-on, rather than everything being in a classroom setting, which is very valuable, but also looking for opportunities for internships and apprenticeships where there's some hands-on learning that I think is extraordinarily valuable. But it is a concern for me when I hear this, that if we can't do something to eliminate some of these issues so that it is a career path that our young people want to take, it's going to be harder and harder for us to recruit and retain individuals in that area. So thank you for everything that you will do to support this group, because it does have an impact when we're looking at trying to build our colleges of technology programs and our agriculture and forestry programs here, and keeping young people interested in those areas. The opportunities are endless for these degrees as well. It's not all just about row crop. It's not all just about, you know, the logging operation. That's an important part of it. But Dr. Pelkey just pointed out we're standing ready to look at some new opportunities that we can make happen on this campus in the heart of where agriculture and forestry is. That can be a model for the rest of the country. Some new products that we're talking about, new ways of using it. It not only benefits our institution and supports the need that we have, but it's a demonstration for what can be done on a larger level. The veterinarian concern is a great one. This is very expensive. We have unbelievable programs here for pre-vet. Our students do well. That when they go to the vet programs, they graduate, they're lucrative. But the other side is we need to keep them in Southeast Arkansas.
Right.
And so if we don't have an economy in this region that encourages our young people to stay, and all of these industries are going to support that, then those that we do graduate have a tendency to want to move somewhere else. And we must stop our population erosion in those areas. So thank you for being here today and listening, and just knowing that everything we talked about has a very direct and powerful impact on this university.
No. Well, thank you, and thank you for the great job that you all do. And I'm not just saying that. Yes, sir.
I just want to echo what Dr. Dawson said. I want to thank you for writing the letter for us in order to receive that USDA grant. We do have it. We're in the process of trying to put in a ag apprenticeship program dealing with high technology.
That's great. Well, no, but again, this is so very important, and you have to have, you know, tremendous institutions like this that are doing a good job. I was with George Dunklin, and he brought over a group of students that had the ducks, and I guess they had little cameras on them, and they released them. But again, you know, a good portion of those were females that were in that program, which is so important. The demographics are working against us. If you look at health care, 40% of the providers in Arkansas are over 60 years old. I mean, what are we going to do in 10 or 15 years? You know, I mean, the average age of the farmer is 57. So again, you know, these are real problems. So we got the demographic problem. We're aging out as a nation. And then the other problem is that young people are career-minded. They're busy. They're not getting married. Kathy and I started dating when I was 16. We've been together forever. You don't do that anymore. You know, now people are getting married so much later and having fewer children. You're going to experience that. You know, just everything is going to experience that. The pipeline, we got an aging on the top, and then the pipeline is getting much smaller, you know. And so, you know, these are problems that we're going to have to deal with, and that's where you know, things like these visa programs are going to be they're important now. They're going to be even more important in the future. But we do appreciate all that you all are doing to do that. Any ideas you've got for us, we'll be glad to do likewise. The Farm Bill is very important for you as producers, but besides that, you've got to have a quality of life to where you live, or people aren't going to come back. And so it's about helping with broadband. It's about helping with rural education, you know, rural water infrastructure, supporting our hospitals. You know, all of these things, our rural hospitals. If you don't have that, like I say, you don't have the quality of life where you know, people simply aren't going to come back. So it's a big deal. It's really important, and we appreciate your help with it. So thank you all for being here. I'll be around for a little bit if you want to grab me, if you got something myself. And then again, our staff is here. Wave your hands again. They know everything there is to know about everything in the Farm Bill. So thank you all very much. We do appreciate it. Thank you to our panel. Appreciate it.